there was a battle brewing. You can see the battle on the map that's behind me. So we had the Philistines on top of one mountain. You had the people of Israel and their warriors on top of the other mountain. And this is the way they did this back then. So the armies would camp out on top of the hills. And the reason they did that is just it was impossible then for the enemy to climb the hill and defeat them at the same time, because you're so vulnerable when you're climbing a hill. And then when the adversaries went to fight, they would go down into the what's called the Shephelah. It's like the Israeli word, the Hebrew word for valley, and you can see what this valley pretty much looked like. That's a beautiful part of what was then Judah, which is now Israel. And the way they did this was different than the way we fight battles today. These armies weren't nearly as big as ours. All the combat pretty much would have been hand-to-hand. So instead of pretty much everybody dying and a few people surviving, what they would do is they would send out like their toughest or strongest or most skilled warrior to fight like the toughest, most skilled, strongest warrior from the other side. And oftentimes it was winner take all. A lot of lives, a lot of blood was spared through that type of agreement. And the Philistines, in the Hebrew, it means wanderers. They were wandering from a place called Greece. We get our modern day area, Palestine, from the Philistines here. Now, they would have sent down their biggest warrior. Do y'all know his name? Yeah, it's Goliath. They would have sent him down, and Goliath, what he would do is, and this was customary, he would yell up to the top of the hill, and he would basically challenge any of the Israeli warriors to a battle, winner take all. Now, all of a sudden, if you see this guy that's like twice your size, he didn't get any takers the first day. He didn't get any takers the second day. For 40 days, he challenged the people of Israel. Now, there's a man named Jesse. Jesse had 4 sons. The 3 oldest sons were in the Israeli army. So they would have been challenged by Goliath for these 40 straight days. Now, Jesse had a 4th son, the youngest son. His name was what? David. And David was too young to fight on the army. So what David did, David was a very skilled, creative young man. He was a musician. The king's name at the time was Saul. Saul wasn't much of a king. Saul didn't deal with stress very well. He'd get headaches. And when David would play his harp, Saul's headaches would go away. David was also a shepherd. So Jesse, the dad, was too old to take care of the sheep. The 3 older brothers, they were gone at war. So David was the shepherd as well. Now, Jesse wanted to see how his boys were doing. And the internet connection at the top of the mountain, it just wasn't working very well. And Jesse was curious how these 3 kids were doing. So what he does is he gives David some grain, some bread, some meat, some cheese. And he says, what I want you to do, David, is take these sandwiches to your brothers. Just check in with them and see how they're doing. Then when you come back, you can take care of the sheep. They'll still be here. So this leads us to our first lesson from David and Goliath. And lesson number 1 is this: don't ever let anybody or anything stop your sandwich delivery. Just don't let them do that. Now, here's the deal. David had an impressive resume. He was a musician. David was a shepherd, and now David is a sandwich delivery boy. So David didn't wake up that morning thinking that he was going to fight in a battle. David didn't wake up that morning thinking that he was going to have to slay a giant. David didn't wake up that morning thinking that his life was going to change. So we find the story continue in 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 17. One day, Jesse said to David, and here's the dialogue, "Take this basket of roasted grain and these 10 loaves of bread, carry them quickly to your brothers, and give these 10 cuts of cheese to their captain. See how your brothers are getting along, and bring back a report on how they are doing." So do you know what Goliath was? Goliath was an obstacle to David's sandwich delivery. He got in the way. Now, all of us every day are going to deal with obstacles. There are dreams that we have. There's hopes that we have. There's goals that we have set. And the road to get to these places is not always going to be flat and smooth. There's going to be curves. There's going to be hills. There's going to be obstacles. Don't let anything or anybody get in the way of your dreams and your hopes and your goals and your next step on the progress that will get you to that place. Now, you got to know something about obstacles. They are normal and they are predictable, and they will block, temporarily at least, your progress in the path you want to go. Now, they can do one of two things. They can slow you down, or they can stop you. Obstacles are not dead ends, they're only delays. So here's what we do. We go over them, we go around them, we go under them, we go through them. But don't let the obstacle win. Let your hopes and your dreams and your goals win. Now, let me just give you a couple examples. Let's say you want to get fit. So you're going to join a gym, and there's an obstacle. And the obstacle is your perception of other people when you walk into that gym. You know, they're going to see that you don't know where the stuff is. They're going to see that you may not look like everybody else. But don't let that obstacle get in your way of where you want to go. Yeah, maybe some of you want to have a better relationship with somebody. But you know that to get to that better relationship, you have to have a tough talk with them, and that tough talk can be pretty awkward, and the result may not be the best. Do not let that obstacle get in the way of a better relationship. Obstacles are not dead ends, they're only delays. So what we do, like David, we complete what we started. Number 2, be an eagle, not a parrot. So David here was an eagle. David, he was an eagle. He was a dreamer. He saw the positive possibilities. King Saul, on the other hand, was a parrot. He was a doubter. He saw the negative possibilities. So doubters are going to be like parrots. They talk a lot, but they're never going to fly. Dreamers are going to be like eagles. They don't say much, but an eagle is the one who has conquered the skies. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at the next few verses in verses 32 and 33. So at this point, Goliath, for the 40th day in a row, has challenged the people of Israel. And he hasn't had a taker to this point. David is in the middle of his sandwich delivery. And here's the narrative. David told Saul, "Don't worry about this Philistine. I'll fight him." That's what an eagle says, because an eagle sees possibilities. Now, Saul, the parrot, he says, "Don't be ridiculous. There's no way. There is no way you can fight this Philistine and possibly win. You're only a boy, and this has been a man of war since his youth." So who in your life do you listen to? Do you listen to the parrot? The doubter? The one that says you're not good enough? The one that says that you're not young enough? The one that says that you're bound to fail? The one that says that you're wasting your time? Or do you listen to the eagle? The one that says, you can do this. It's possible. It's not going to be easy. But there's this crazy cool reward at the end of this journey. Now, I believe that sometimes God is going to put, I've observed this, I've experienced it. I believe that sometimes God is going to put a Goliath in our life so that we can find the David who is within us. And there is a David in every last one of us. There's challenges, there's opportunities, there's overcoming obstacles. Now, let's go to point 3. The third thing that we take from David and Goliath. David took care of sheep long before he slayed the giant. So David, his fame, his success, his achievement, it happened in a moment, but it took him years. It took him years to get to that moment. David was a shepherd. Sheep are very vulnerable animals. They have almost no way to defend themselves against a predator. That's why they have shepherds, and David was a shepherd. Now, let's listen to David and Saul's conversation as it continues in verse 34. Now, Saul has objected to David fighting Goliath. And David says, I've been a shepherd before I'm a giant slayer. And here's what he says. I have been taking care of my father's sheep and goats, he said. When a lion or a bear comes to steal a lamb from a flock, I go after it with a club and rescue the lamb from its mouth. So he's looking at Saul and he says, I see this big guy down there. But I've also seen lions, and I've seen bears, and I had a club, and I did pretty well against them, and it's my turn to try to face this big bully over here. Now, this is how progress happens in life. David didn't just one day out of nowhere, having done nothing before this, go kill this giant. He had prepared for this moment. Like, did you ever see The Karate Kid? Like, are y'all awake? Did y'all ever see The Karate Kid? Like the movie that was like the 1980s classic, and what did he do? Like he waxed on and he waxed off, and like he did that, then he painted the fence, and he sanded the floor, and then when it came time to fight the guy, he was ready because he had prepared. So if you want to like start building some wealth, like you start spending less and saving more. If you want to invest in your relationships, you listen and you serve. If you want to run a 5K, you walk a mile first. Like, that's how this happens. As the church, this is what we've done. I remember when we started off, we raised like $2,000 for this missionary in Botswana, and like we thought that was like this really big thing. And then a few years later, like we bought a van for Release Ministries. Like the kids are getting out of jail, and they go to these halfway houses, and they go from point A to point B, and y'all gave like $15,000 to buy that van. And then after that, we ran this like marathon and half marathon in Lincoln, and we raised like $45,000 for kids in Africa. Then we bought a ministry center on Center Street. It was $125,000 to do the down payment, and y'all did that. Then we bought this piece of land that we're sitting on right now. That was $1 million, and we did that. And then a few years ago, we gave millions of dollars to buy the building that we're sitting in right now. Now, what do you think would have happened if me and Ron, during that initial meeting at Faith Westwood United Methodist Church in the conference room, said, let's go raise a couple $1 million and build this building? We would have fallen flat on our face because we didn't follow the principle that you got to be a shepherd first before you slay a giant. Progress in life is going to happen gradually. Now, courage does not just emerge in a moment. Courage is developed over time. So when David said, I'll fight him, it wasn't just this brave, bold, ignorant kid. It was this guy that said, yeah, I can do this. I fought lions, I fought bears, and I can take down this giant. Now, if you've tuned me out for the previous 10 minutes and you got about 5 left, and you're not going to listen then, just like at least read the screen behind me as I read it. And I believe this, and I want you to hear this. I want you to own this. I want you to embrace it, that you can be more than you think you can be. And you can do more than you think you can do. And you just got to believe. You just got to believe the same things about you that God believes about you. Because there's a David inside of you. This bold and courageous warrior who's not going to back down from a giant that's going to stop him from doing his sandwich delivery. And the way we do this is patience, perseverance, and process. That's how it happens. Number 4, you got to stick with your slingshot. So David agreed to fight the giant. Saul agreed that he was going to let him do that. Now, Saul tried to have David fight Goliath the way that Saul thought was best. So we pick this one up in verse 38. Then Saul gave David his own armor, a bronze helmet and a coat of mail. And David put it on, strapped a sword over it, and took a step or two to see what it was like, for he had never worn such things before. I can't go in these, he protested to Saul. I'm not used to them. So David took them off again. He picked up 5 smooth stones from a stream and put them in his shepherd's bag. Then, armed only with a shepherd's staff and a sling, he started across the valley to fight the Philistine. So you know what would have happened if David would have tried to fight Goliath with all that armor and the sword? He would have got killed. There's no way. He would have been half Goliath size. David knew something we all got to learn, and that's like you just stick with your own slingshot. David knew the only way that he was going to take down this giant was to be agile and mobile and use his skill and not his strength. That's the way. So do you guys know who Jeff Bezos is? He's the richest man in the world. He started this company, Amazon.com. You've probably heard of it before. So let's just say that his Goliath, and he had Goliath when he started this, his Goliath would have been Borders bookstore. His Goliath would have been Toys R Us. And what if, like, his advisor said, well, yeah, you just got to build newer, nicer stores and in better places and offer better products with better service at a better price. Like, there is no way. There is no way today he would be worth $112 billion. He used his own slingshot. That's what he did. He says, I got this idea. I'm going to do this on this new thing called the World Wide Web, and we're going to open up a virtual store. And people laughed. They thought he was crazy. They said, people are going to shop from their own living rooms, and we're going to have their goods delivered by the U.S. Postal Service and UPS. Well, Toys R Us and Borders, I don't think they exist anymore. Because this man, he used his own slingshot. And I remember, like, last week I did a wedding in Phoenix. I know you're all thinking about the weather last weekend. I'm not getting any sympathy from any of y'all right now. So I was getting ready to do this wedding, and I was 75 minutes before the wedding. I was about 20 minutes away, and like I would have been 55 minutes early, which would have been like a personal best for me. I've done a couple hundred weddings, and got the liturgy done, got my clothes pressed and ironed, got the bow tie all tied. I was ready to go. I went to get my jacket out of the closet, and the jacket was not in my closet. So I called my son Benjamin. It turned out that the jacket was still in Omaha. Now, if you're sitting in the thing, it's not bad, but like I would be in most of the pictures, and I didn't want these friends of mine to have their wedding pictures without, like, just me, like, with an untucked shirt and this ridiculous-looking bow tie. So I used the slingshot. I had three things that were available to me. I had a car, I had a cell phone, and I had a credit card. So the Men's Warehouse and the Kohl's were both in the wrong direction. This is so cool that the groom's name was Nick. And the other place that Yelp recommended was Nick's Sportswear. I said, there it is, going to Nick's Sportswear. It was on the way. The only thing I didn't know is it was in this great big shopping mall where every parking spot was taken. So I finally get into Nick's Menswear with 48 minutes before the wedding starts. And the guy comes up, 25-year-old clerk. He says, how can I help you today? I said, I'm doing a wedding in 48 minutes, and I need to buy a jacket. He says, like, dude, this is like the coolest story I've heard. I said, well, you haven't heard of my other wedding stories yet. I got a lot of them that would top this, but let's just go over to the 44 regular jackets. He says, well, we don't sell jackets, we just sell suits. So, all right, let's go over to the 44 regular suits. So I go over to the 44 regular suits, and I try this thing on, and it's about like 4 sizes too small. I said, are your jackets measured the same in Arizona as they are in Nebraska? I know we like grow them big here, but he says, oh, this is, all our suits are slim fit. I'm like, the whole point of being 44 regular is you're not slim. Like, if you're like a 38 regular, maybe I get that, but so then I go up to the 46, I go to the 40. I ended up buying a 48 short, slim fit suit. There was 3 of them to choose from. One of them actually didn't look terrible. So a little bit of money. And then I had to buy a vest with that one, too. That one hanging with a vest. It was the only suit in the store that had a vest. I had to buy the vest. And I get to the wedding 8 minutes early. First comment I get is, nice jacket. So yeah, I had a tough time picking that one out. So what you do is you use your slingshot. Like, you have resources to conquer the obstacles. You got experiences. You have friends. You have resources that are going to help you conquer the giants in your life. The last one I got is number 5. Don't run from your giants. Run to them. So I'm going to tell you this, like this from the heart. There's a lot of us that have missed out on a lot of life because we've run from our giants. We didn't face our fears. We thought the obstacle was just too big, and we didn't try to go over it or around it or under it or through it. Don't let the obstacle win. So in verse 48, as Goliath moved closer to attack, David quickly ran out to meet him. He didn't walk. He didn't go the opposite direction. It didn't paralyze him dead in his tracks. He ran to meet his giant. A few verses later, David, he pulled out a little rock and he put it in his sling and he slung it around a few times and he threw it, and this one little rock, this little river stone, it slayed the giant. David, he could deliver his sandwiches and he could go back and tell his dad that, yeah, the brothers, they're fine. They're looking forward to seeing you again. Now, here's what I believe. I believe that some of the best relationships have never started. I believe that many dreams have never happened. I believe that many life-changing opportunities were missed because of fear. Because we didn't run to our giants, we ran away from them. We let those giants paralyze us dead in our tracks. And here's the do not let fear have the last word in your life. Be bold. Be courageous. Face your giants. There is prosperity. There is blessing. There is abundance. There is success. There is faithfulness. There is holiness just on the other side of your giants.